Tim asked me to talk tonight, and I thought I'd talk about the 7 things I've learned about making life better. I left Cosmo 4 years ago, and I was quite unwell, and it was a gift because it actually spurred me on to do what mattered to me, and that was work out how to have a better life. My life was probably not on track at the time, and it's a work in progress to this day. It's not a journey to find happiness because I do sadness so well. I don't want to leave it out of my repertoire. And happiness, I don't think, is all it's cracked up to be. So it's about having a better life. I went over to America and I approached Oprah magazine, and they gave me a column to do this particular project. And then, of course, the Lehman Brothers collapsed, and they got rid of all contributors. So I came back to Australia and did the column for Sunday Life. And I wrote about 130 columns, I think, before finishing off just before Christmas. And there are a number of patterns that emerged over this time. And as Tim mentioned, I spoke to all different kinds of people, and it's amazing how many of them have the same thing in common. Why 7? When you work in magazines, you soon work out that odd numbers register with people better. So that's why it was 7. And there were many, many more. But as I say, these are the ones that kind of were very familiar to a lot of the people I spoke to. So the first one, many of you who live in Bondi would be familiar with Eugene. He's around. If you're up early in the morning, that is, you'll see him down at Bondi. Look, having a morning routine would probably be the most prevalent theme that I've come across with just about everyone I've ever spoken to. It really is the secret, it would seem, to having a better life and being successful. Basically, I got quite obsessed by this idea, and I decided to research it and work out what it was about waking up early and having a routine that worked. Firstly, it eliminates decisions, and the scientists are showing that we have very limited decision-making faculties. So the less decisions you have to make, the better decisions you'll make when you actually make them. So if you can get up and you don't have to make a decision, you don't have to use your brain, you get on your sneakers and you get out the door, or you have the same breakfast or whatever it is, it actually does make your life better. It also makes you more confident. Every decision you make that's a smooth decision, and this comes from somebody who, as Tim knows, is exceedingly indecisive, makes you more confident about making the next decision. The second factor in all of this is having a technique that sets the tone for the day, and that's where Eugene comes in. He was one of the first people I interviewed, actually, and his secret was going to the beach and connecting with his inside people. And anyone who knows Eugene can probably vouch for this. He's a very connected person, and he has a conversation with his inside people. I'm sure I don't have to explain what inside people are. You've probably got a bit of a feel. And he says, are we on track? Are we heading in the right direction? Are we happy here? And then he starts his day. And this was the thing that came up quite a lot, that people actually had these conversations with themselves to make sure that they were on track. And this seems to be really, really important. I loved that Eugene did this, and then from that he decided playing around with digital cameras before anybody else did, and then of course he took photos of surfers because he liked to, and he was on track and he was happy, and it grew into a business that many of you would know today as Aquabumps, and of course it's 10 years later, and he's still doing extremely well, and he's still connecting with his inside people. Anyone who's seen him surf would probably know that he's very connected with his inside people. He smiles. Other factors that seems to be the rhythm with everybody in the morning. Hot water and lemon, meditating, then exercising. And it's amazing how many men, when I interview them, want to tell me and demonstrate the exercise that they do, whether it's push-ups or, burpees or whatever in some random hotel room. I'm always impressed, or at least look impressed. Watching Edward de Bono do that is not so impressive. They then eat, and then they do their most important work for the day, and then they check their emails. And I think that's really key. I think we can all learn from that. I interviewed Gretchen Rubin, who wrote a phenomenally successful book called The Happiness Project. It became this massive bestseller. I think it was on the New York bestseller list for something like 50 weeks, something ridiculous like that. And I asked her, what was the one tip? She's a lawyer and she studied all of this, with precision. I said, what was the one tip that really resonated with people and with yourself, out of all the things that she tested on her path to happiness? And she said, make your bed every day. which mothers in the audience would probably take home to their children tonight. She stressed that it's the everyday bit that counts because it takes the decision-making process out of things. You get up, you do it, you don't go, okay, 4 days a week I make my bed. Is it Wednesday or Thursday? You know, you take Thursday off and then you think, God, I'm going to have to make up for it. It's a whole heap of angst you can cut out by doing it every day. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Andy Warhol said the same. He said, do it once or do it every day. Anything in between is a waste of time. So I found that weird coming from, of all people, Andy Warhol. Okay, to the left. Oh, that's a random picture, but thank you, Lee, for inserting that. I'm sure people will find something inspiring in that. It's mostly because I didn't have a picture of my next person. But having a gratitude ritual is huge. And I think some scientist in the UK has found that being grateful and practising a grateful kind of routine every day is one of the surefire ways to get happy. John DeMartini, I don't know if any of you have seen The Secret, small documentary called The Secret. He was the guy that was straight out of Central Casting for the woo-woo dude. You know, like he has the black skivvy and the foppish hair and when he shakes my hand, you know, it's sort of with both hands and gets teary in the eye. He gets teary in the eye every time he does anything. But a lovely, absolutely gorgeous man. Anyway, his thing is gratitude, and he's been writing a gratitude journal for 37 years, and he was very excited not to do burpees or star jumps in front of me, but to take me up to his hotel room and show me his gratitude journal. And he had his 2009 edition there, as well as his 2007 and 2008 and 2010 edition. And I'm not joking, they were this thick. And they were with handwritten notes, 3 things every day that he was grateful for. And he's done it for 37 years. And he's written a book about it and trademarked the name. And I think everything about him was trademarked in some way or another. But the tip that he gave me was every night when you get into bed, 3 things, reflect on it for 4 minutes. And I've been doing that ever since I met him, and it works. It really does. And, of course, I had to go and work out why it worked. And from what I can gather, it basically creates a congruency between our goals and the fulfilment of those goals. And in that moment of congruency that we acknowledge, I guess we see a recognition that things are gelling cooperatively in life, you know, that there's some synchronicity, that everything's okay. You know, like life works out despite, you know, everything that goes on. And it can be really innocuous. I do it in this ridiculous way. I still do that name of the Father and the Son. You know, I don't know how many Catholics are in the audience, but I still do it. It's just part of my thing. And I'll be grateful for the idea that I went to go and buy kale today in the supermarket and it was on special, you know. And it's just like, wow, you know. Something like that will actually make me go, everything's all right, life's working out as it needs to. You know, it makes me, leaves me in awe of the bigness of life, that it's tracking along and, you know, I don't have to interfere, or as Tim always says to me, keep my grubby mitts off it, which I have to do a lot of. Okay. Oh, there we are. Now, I've met His Holiness the Dalai Lama 3 times, and I'm an ambassador to him when he's here in Australia, which is a really weird title, but, you know, you bandy it about when you need to. Each time I've met him, I've kind of gone away and thought, you know what, he's a nice little man who giggles a lot, and, you know, he says kind of obvious-isms, you know, like be peaceful. And I kind of go away and think, you know, really, I don't really have anything to take home from that. And then it sort of percolates, and I realise he's said something completely profound. One of the first things I read about him when I was first researching him was with an interview for a gay magazine. And Tibetan monks aren't particularly pro-gay marriage in general, but he was asked by the journalist, is being gay okay? And his response was, I will ask, what is your companion's opinion? If they both agree, then it is okay. And I thought that was the most perfect answer. I think our politicians today could learn from such a sort of entertaining deflection of a tricky question. The first time I met him, I asked him a question that I think many of you in this room would probably want to ask him, which is, how the hell do you get your mind to shut up? Whether it's when you're meditating or when you're in the shower or when you're trying to get to sleep. And he was really interesting. I said, you know, he said, oh, waste of time. Waste of time. He said, maybe if I sat in a cave on a mountain for 2 years, Maybe, and I meditated for those full 2 years, maybe I could get my head to shut up. He said, but waste of time, waste of time.